They say the Rocky Mountains hide more than just beauty. Some nights, when the storm clouds gather and thunder shakes the valleys, people disappear, and the mountains keep their secrets. This is the night my family will never forget. It was the winter of 1998 when my father decided we would spend a weekend in the Rocky Mountains. I was 12 and the idea of snow and adventure thrilled me. My mother, however, wasn't so sure. The local radio had been warning about an approaching blizzard for 2 days. But my father, a stubborn and practical man, laughed it off. "We'll be fine," he said, tossing bags into the car. "The cabin's got a fireplace. What could go wrong?" The drive began calmly enough. The city lights of Denver faded behind us, and the open road ahead seemed endless. I remember watching the snow start to fall. Small flakes that glowed gold under the streetlights before vanishing into darkness. As we climbed higher into the mountains, the snowfall thickened. The road turned slick and narrow, lined by endless walls of pine. The world outside the windows became a swirl of white and shadow. My mother sat quietly, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Occasionally she would glance at my father, who hummed softly to keep the mood light. "This is what winter's supposed to feel like," he said cheerfully. But as we reached higher altitudes, even he stopped talking. The tires began to skid on turns, and the sound of wind howling through the trees grew louder, almost human in its voice. By the time we reached the cabin, night had already fallen. The structure was small and old, logs darkened by age, the roof heavy with snow. It sat at the edge of a clearing surrounded by pines that seemed to stretch forever. Inside it was freezing. The air smelled of dust, wet wood, and something faintly metallic. My father worked quickly to start a fire, and soon the living room was glowing in orange light. Outside, the storm raged on. Dinner was simple. Canned soup and bread warmed near the fire. We laughed a little, trying to shake off the eerie isolation. The radio played faint static before dying completely. No phone signal, no sound of cars, nothing. Only the steady thump of wind hitting the walls. Afterward, my father checked the windows and locked the door. "We'll sleep early," he said. "The snow will clear by morning." It didn't. By 9 o'clock, the wind grew violent. Snow slapped against the windows in thick sheets. The fire flickered wildly, and then the power went out. My mother lit a few candles, their trembling light casting long, uneven shadows across the room. I remember the silence between the gusts of wind, that awful stillness, as if the mountain itself were listening. That's when we first heard it, a faint, steady knocking. Knock, knock, knock. 3 times, slow and deliberate. It came from the front porch. My father froze mid-step. "Probably a branch," he muttered, grabbing his flashlight. He opened the door just a crack. A wave of icy air rushed in, making the candles flicker. He shined the beam outside. Snow whirled in every direction, but nothing else. Still, he stepped out. Minutes passed. My mother began pacing. "He's been gone too long," she whispered. I watched the door, half expecting it to burst open. When it finally did, my father stumbled in, his jacket dusted with snow, his face pale. "There's something out there," he said quietly. I saw footprints, large ones, too big to be human. We sat together by the fire, trying to ignore the sound of wind and creaking wood. Then the knocking came again, louder, closer, this time from the sidewall. 3 knocks, pause, then another 3 from behind the cabin. It was moving around us. My mother's lips trembled as she whispered a prayer. My father stood and shouted, "Who's there?" But his voice was swallowed by the storm. The knocking stopped, replaced by something worse. Footsteps in the snow. Slow, dragging steps circling the cabin, each one crisp and heavy. Then silence again. My heart hammered so loudly I could barely breathe. My father stood by the door, gripping the fire poker, listening. Then faintly through the storm a voice called out, "Tom!" It was soft, drawn out. My father's name. He turned white. "It knows my name," he whispered. My mother's eyes filled with tears. "It's the wind," she said, her voice shaking. But we all knew it wasn't. The voice came again, clearer this time. "Tom, open the door." My father shouted, "Go away!" The storm answered with another gust that nearly blew out the fire. We huddled together for hours. Every sound felt amplified. The crackling of wood, the drip of melting ice, the faint groan of the roof. Sometime around midnight, I thought I heard breathing near the window. Slow, heavy. I looked, but the frost was too thick to see through. I wiped a circle on the glass and froze. On the other side, faintly illuminated by the candlelight, was a tall shadow. It stood perfectly still. I couldn't make out its face, only the shape, broad shoulders, long limbs. Then it leaned forward and I saw the faintest reflection of two pale eyes. I screamed. My father rushed over, but when he looked, it was gone. He stepped outside again, despite my mother begging him not to. The door shut behind him, and for several minutes all we heard was the wind. Then came a thud. Something hit the side of the cabin hard enough to shake the walls. My mother screamed. The sound came again, louder, from the roof this time. My father burst back in, slamming the door behind him. "It's on the roof," he yelled. We could hear slow, deliberate footsteps moving above us. Boards creaked under the weight. Then silence. For the next few hours, none of us spoke. My father kept the poker ready, eyes fixed on the ceiling. My mother sat beside me, whispering prayers under her breath. The storm roared outside, but beneath it, every now and then, came the faint sound of something dragging through the snow. It circled the cabin again. Just before dawn, the noise stopped completely. The wind died. The world outside was eerily still. My father waited another hour before unlocking the door. When he stepped outside, he froze. The snow around the cabin was covered in footprints, massive, deep impressions that led from the forest to our porch, around the cabin, then vanished back into the woods. But there were no return prints. Whatever it was, it hadn't left the same way. We packed our things in silence. None of us spoke about the night before. My father kept glancing toward the tree line as if expecting something to appear. When we finally drove away, I looked back one last time. The cabin looked small, half buried in snow, smoke rising faintly from the chimney like a warning. The drive back down was silent. The radio was dead. The snow cleared as we descended, but the tension didn't. My father's hands trembled on the steering wheel. "Don't ever tell anyone," he said finally. "They won't believe us." My mother nodded, staring blankly out the window. Years passed. I grew up, moved away, and tried to forget. But some nights I still dream of that knocking. Slow, steady, patient. One winter, curiosity got the better of me. I drove back to the same area. The old road was nearly gone, buried under weeds and mud. I found the spot where the cabin once stood, but it was gone, burned to ash. Only a few charred beams poked from the snow like blackened bones. As I stood there in the silence, I felt the same heavy air pressing around me, the same cold that bit through my coat. The forest was still, except for the occasional creak of a tree in the wind. I turned to leave, and then I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks echoing from somewhere behind me. I froze, too afraid to turn. Then, carried faintly through the icy wind, came a whisper. Soft, familiar, and stretched thin with distance. "Tom."